Okay, so we are working on our warm-up activity, simplifying radicals. What we are looking to do is we want to take as much out of the square root as possible. Because 18 is not the perfect square, I cannot just take a square root of 18, right? If I use calculator, it gives me the decimal, right? The ugly number. We don't want to do that. Instead, right? What is happening?
Needs to
We're back. So when I look at number 18, I know that 18 is 2 times 9. Is that correct? So I can rewrite it like that, the radical, square root of the product. And then I know that 9 is the perfect square of what? 3. So the square root of 9 is what? 3. I can take the 3 out of the radical, but I still have the 2 left there. So this is called simplifying the radical. We are rewriting the original radical in the simplest form, taking as much out of the square root as possible. Remember this? Right? No? So what about square root of 75? What is the 75 is the product of what numbers? So for example, 15 and 5, this doesn't help me much though, right? Because neither 15 nor 5 is the perfect square. But I can notice something else. 15 is the product of what numbers? 15 is the product of 3 and 5. So it's really 3 times 5 times 5. Correct? See how I rewrote 75 as 3 times 5 times 5? No? Okay, give me 1 second. You see that? Okay. So 5 times 5 is the 5 squared. Square root of 5 squared is what? 5. And then I still have the square root of 3 left. So I simplified the original radical in this form. And Miss Edwards told me what is it? Factor ladder.
Factor ladder.
Yes. That's how.
That's
Yeah, so that's what you did, I think, in Algebra 1, some of you. So if I look at 75, right, I'm trying to think about the smallest number that I can use to divide 75 by. What is the smallest number you can think of? 3, right? So 75 divided by 3 is what? Oh, it is 25. We said 15? Yes, so this is, oh, 25, right, this time. So 25. And so 75 divided by 3 is 25. Now, what is the smallest number that is the factor of 25? 5. 25 divided by 25 is just 5. And then what is the smallest number that I can divide 5 by? 5. And what's left is 1. This is where we stop. And right? And then we are looking for our pairs. So I have 2 5s here. It means that when I'm looking at square root of 75, I can take that paired number out of the square root. 5. And then I don't have any more pairs, so whatever is left stays under. That's what we're doing. So let's try negative 32. Should we do that? Together or by yourself? Together. Let's do it together. So 32, I'm looking for those products. So let's do the ladder. 32 is divided, I can divide it by what? By 2. 16, 2, 8, 2, 4, 2, 2, 2, finally 1. So how many pairs of 2 do I have? 2 pairs of 2, right? So 2 and then 2 again. So I still have that negative in front, so don't forget about that. Negative 2 times 2 and then square root of 2 because I still have the 2 left. It doesn't have a pair. But I have to simplify it a little bit more, right? Because I have 2 times 2 here. I can rewrite it what? Negative 4 times square root of 2. That's my answer. Okay? So do the next one by yourself. 15. Japan, do you have an answer? Not yet? Okay, let's do the letter together. Let's say I have 15. I can divide 50 by what's my number? By 2. What do I have left? 25, right? And then I can divide 25 by what number? By 5. Left 5. I can divide 5 by 5 again. And then I just have 1. So what pairs do I have? 5. So I take 5 out and then square root of whatever is left, which is 2. That's it. Questions? Okay. So let's do this one together again and then you'll do the rest by yourself. So now I have the negative, the negative number under the radical sign. We don't like that, do we? So what do we do? What did we learn last class? Don't know? So negative 200 is just negative 1 times 200, correct? Correct? So I can rewrite negative 200 as minus 1 or negative 1 times 200. So I can take the square root of negative 1 out of the radical. What is it? Square root of negative 1. 1? Square root of negative 1? I, right? The imaginary number. And then I still have that square root of 200 left under the right, left there. So I can simplify the square root of 200 now using my ladder. Correct? Yeah, so let's do that. 200 is divisible by what? Divisible, divisible. By 2. That will be a long. That's fine. Okay, so 200. I can give, wow, this will be a lot of 2's. Let's not do that. Can you notice the 200 is the product of what numbers? One of them is perfect square. Yeah, let's just do that. We could do the latter, but I'm just too lazy right now. It will work. But I noticed that my 200 is the product of 2 and 100. And I know what the square root of 100 is, right? 10. So I just rewrite 10i square root of 2. But the latter would still work if we do that. It's just it would be long. Yes, we can do the latter. And so we start with 200. 200 is, we can divide it by 2. Oh, negative we need to get out as soon as possible. We write the I. So, because negative is under the radical, we take I out, and then we just need to worry about 200. I is the imaginary number. Remember last time we talked about imaginary number and complex numbers? You were here. Yeah.
If there's a negative inside the square root, then an I comes out.
Yeah.
We don't want a negative inside the square root.
Okay. So do we still want to divide it for 200? Okay. So 200 divided by 2 is just 100. Can I divide 100 by 2 again? Yeah. What do you have? 15. And then 2. And 5. 5. 5. Not too bad, right? 1. So what are my pairs? 5 and 2. So I have pair of 5s and then pair of 2s. So I can rewrite the square root of 1 of 200 as 2 times 5 times what's left under the radical, square root of 2. Oh, I'm just worrying about the 200 right now. And imaginary is still there, I'll take it. So 2 times 5 is 10, square root of 2. right? And now I take, instead of the square root of 200, I will write this. So my I times square root of 200 is really I times 10 times square root. Okay? So if you could work on the rest by yourself, take a few minutes. Oh, perfect, until lunch. You have time until lunch to finish this. We're done. Any questions? Raise your hand. Okay, I'm going to write the answer for this one. Make sure that it's the same. Right? Same? Question? Which one? This one? 6i square root of 2. Yes. No. I6 or 6i is the same, right? It's I multiplied by 6 is like 3 multiplied by 2 is the same as 2 multiplied by 3, right? The property I can rewrite it as 6i. If you have questions, please raise your hand. I used to have Mary here who would like be my recording manager. Okay, so we already were solving quadratic equations, right? And we can solve them by various methods. So far, we have been solving them by what method? Remember 2 classes ago, you spent some time solving polynomials, polynomial equations. How did you do this? Factoring, right? So we were solving quadratics by factoring. And today we will be solving them using the square root method, which we just now looked at. Square root method. So what are the steps for this method? The first step is to get whatever is being squared by itself on one side. So right there in that little equation of mine, I already had my x squared on this side and everything else on the other side. So I didn't need to do this. But if I have something like this, I want to see only whatever is squared on this side. So it's just x squared that I want to see. How do I get from here to here? Yes. So how did we do this? Divided by 3. Right? So the idea is to get whatever is squared on one side, everything else on the other. And then what do? We take the square root of both sides. So square root of x squared, and then I do the square root of -9, right? But I have to remember to put that plus or minus side in front. See how we did here, right? I took the square roots, but I needed that plus or minus to make sure that I have both solutions. And then we just solve for x, right? So right here, the square root of x squared is just x, and then it equals plus minus, and I'll just rewrite for now, -9, right? So solve for x. Here I don't really need to do much because I already have x by itself. X equals, but I can simplify the radical, right? As we did in the warm-up. What is the square root of -9? How can I simplify that? Yes, it's I3, or I multiplied by 3, or it's 3i, right? I can rewrite it as 3i just because I like to have I at the very back.
So it's -9, but because you take out the I, it just makes it
9, yes. Questions about this? Questions about any of these steps? So let's look at the second example. Same steps. The first step is get what is being squared by itself. How do we do this? I only want to see what is squared on this side. We divide by 5. So what's left is x minus 1 squared equals -10, right? The first step is done. I only have the perfect square on this side. The step number 2, take the square root of both sides. So square root of x minus 1 to the power of 2 is what? It's just x minus 1. And then I need to take the square root of -10. But I should remember what? Plus minus, right? Because I always have these two solutions for this kind of equations. Just as we had for that little one. The one on the board. And now I need to solve for x. So how do I solve for x? I want x by itself on this side. So what do? How do I get from here to here? I just add 1 to both sides. Right? So when I add 1 to this side, it's just 1, still plus minus, and then square root of -10. So let's simplify that ugly square root. How do I do that? X equals 1 plus minus. What is the square root of -10? 5i. Do we agree? square root of 10, right? So first thing to do is to take the negative sign out, right? So it's an I, and then I still have it square root of 10. Can I simplify square root of 10?
Divide by 2.
No,
I could try,
You
right?
do the latter, but it won't go anywhere.
Yeah, so it won't go anywhere. I divide by 2, I have 5, and then I divide by 5, I have 1, I have no pairs. So I cannot get anything out of that radical. So it just stays as is. And when you look at this answer, this is the final answer. But what it really means is that we have two answers, right? The first answer is x equals 1 plus I square root of 10. And the second answer is x equals 1 minus I square root of 10. Okay, so two answers. Just combined into one because it's plus and minus. Questions? Okay, so let's practice. Well, okay, so here, sometimes we can use either method, either factoring or square root. So let's just do this one. We kind of already solved it using the square root method, but we'll go through these steps formally. So let's do it by factoring first. What do I need to do? Somebody but Isaiah, somebody I didn't hear yet, Jose. How do I solve these by factoring? What do I need to do? What do I need to do first in the factoring method? No? Anyone? Eva. Right, so I want to start here, but I want to solve it by factoring. What do I do? Right, but the first step is to get everything on one side and have it 0 on the other, right? Yeah, so I'll subtract 4 to make sure that I have x squared minus 4 equals 0. Now I could factor, right? So how do we factor this? Yes, yo. Double parenthesis because this is what does, right? This is the difference of squares. I have perfect squares and the difference. So double parenthesis, what next yo? X minus 2, x plus 2. Because I have difference of squares, I take the square root of each of the terms, put them in double parentheses, and do the opposite signs. Right? So now what? How do we finish solving this? We factor. Now I take each factor, x minus 2 equals to 0, or it's x plus 2 equals to 0. Right, I solve my little equation and I get x equals 2 or x equals minus negative 2. I can combine these two answers as x equals plus or minus 2. This is just different way of writing the same thing. Yes, we could also do this, yes. The fancy way. That's right. Like that. Okay, so we solved it by factoring. Now let's go ahead and solve it by the square root, the new method. Kind of already solved it, but we'll just go step by step. So step 1 is to do what? Get whatever is squared on one side, right? And that's already done. No need to do anything, correct? What is the next thing? Yeah. Yeah. We take the square root of both sides. I can write it here. So it's step by step. And so I take the square root of both sides, but I don't forget what? What should I not forget? Plus and minus in front. My square roots are kind of funny, but you know what I mean. Okay, so plus minus. What is the square root of x squared? X. X. And then what is the, and then plus minus, and what is the square root of 4? 2. Same answer. Exactly the same answer. Questions? Okay. Ready to try something by yourself? No, not yet? Okay. Okay, let's do one more together. Teddy, how do I solve this? What is the first thing to do? Get rid of the 4. I want to have only what's squared on one side. So I'm getting rid of the 4. Now what? Square root of both sides. So square root of x squared equals square root of 7. And I don't forget what? Plus or minus. Super important, otherwise we will lose one of the solutions. So what is my square root of x squared? Just x, and equals plus minus. Can I simplify square root of 7? Not really, so I'll just leave it as this. So that's my answer. And the fancy way, of course, to add those brackets. It's like that, right? X equals, and then those brackets. Now ready to try it by yourself? Sure, let's do it. Try to solve it by yourself. Okay, so who will help me? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting to like turn it off and on. Okay, so what do we do first? Jacob, what do we do first? We can divide by 4 to get rid of everything but the square. So I have t squared equals negative 1 over 4. Second. Now what? So I take the square roots, right? So square root of t squared is just t, and then square root of negative 1 over 4, and add plus minus. I don't forget plus and minus. So now I need to simplify this, right? How can I simplify square root of negative 1 over 4? Yes. Oh, you're so lucky. So t equals plus or minus, because we have that negative here under this square root, we take it out as I, and then I still have the square root of 1 over 4. Can I simplify that?
Yeah.
No? Yes. So remember, square root of 1 over 4 is the same as square root of 1 divided by square root of 4. Right? Remember that? And square root of 1 is just 1, and square root of 4 is what? 2. So the square root of 1 over 4 is just 1 over 2. Okay? So I can rewrite as t equals plus minus I times 1 over 2. You can write it in different ways, right? So I can say t equals plus minus 1 over 2 times I, or I can even say plus minus I divided by 2, right? These are all the same kind of different ways of writing the same thing, right? Questions about this one? Okay, very good. So let's solve next one. Try by yourself. Right, so I can either divide by negative 1/3 or I can multiply by the reciprocal, right? So easier to see that I can multiply by negative 3. Correct? And then negative 1/3 multiplied by negative 3 is just 1. So here I have just x squared. Here I have the minus 120. 40 multiplied by negative 3. Negative 120. Now what do I do? What do I do now? Come on. Take the square root. Right, so I take the square root of both sides. Okay. The square root, oh, and when I take the square roots of both sides, I don't forget about what? Plus and minus, always. So x square, square root of the x squared is what? Just x, and then I have my plus minus. And then how do I simplify the square root of negative 120? First thing to do is take I out. Now I have the square root of 120. So we do the ladder?
Yeah.
Okay, so 120, I can divide by what? 2, 60, 2, 30, 2, 15, 5, 3, 3, 1. Okay, but you're waiting for me to do it. So what pairs do I have? Just this one, 2 and 2, right? Nothing else paired. So it means that square root of 120 is what? I take the 2 out, and then whatever is left without the pair, I need to multiply. 2 times 5 times 3, which gives me what? 30. Very good. So now I will rewrite, this was just the ladder, right? So now I rewrite my answer as x equals plus minus I and 2 square root of 30. That's my answer. Okay? Just because I hate to see I thrown, I'll rewrite as x plus minus
I have a question.
2 square root of 30i. That's just my preference,
Why
yes.
don't you like divide? Why don't you multiply by one? Why do you just multiply?
I am multiplying it by negative reciprocal, right? Because
Yeah, no, I see the opposite reciprocal. Be there is negative. So opposite reciprocal would be positive. I'm saying why aren't you doing
why I'm not doing the positive? Sorry. Yeah. So I could do it in steps, right? I could first do multiply by 3 over 1 and then do the minus, but I did it together, right? Opposite sign. Yes. Could you not what? Yes, of course. Questions? So what is the next one? Can you do this on your own? Try?
Of course.
Of course you can.
Three.
Let's try on your own. First. Okay, I'm just solving this. Should be checking your answer if you did it on your own and I didn't check it. All good? No questions? Good. Okay, one more, 5. Don't you skip 5 and do 6? It's more interesting. So if you do that, this is the same. Unless you still want to work through this. Okay, let's skip this one and work on 6. If we have time, we'll come back to that. Okay, you see this one is a little bit different, but not too much different, right? You can go through the same steps. So the step 1 is to have everything that is squared on one side. Do I need to do anything here? No, right? Because I already have only the square of this side. So the second step is what? Nothing.
Square root both sides.
Square root both sides. So x minus 3 squared, and then square root of negative 64, plus and minus. Never forget, plus and minus. Otherwise you will lose one of the solutions. Very important. Okay, so square root of the x minus 3 squared is what?
Minus 3.
X minus 3. And then I have my plus minus. And square root of negative 64 is what?
I 64.
I square root of 64. Do you know what that is?
8.
8. So I 8, or I prefer to say 8I. I prefer I to be the last. Okay, and now we need to solve for x, right? Before it was easier. Now we still need to solve for x. Because I have x minus 3 here. What do I do?
Yeah.
I add 3. So I have x equals, no. So I have 3 without I, right? It's just number 3. Plus minus 8I. Can I combine 3 and 8I? No, right? This is the complex number. The real number 3, plus or minus, and then imaginary number 8I. Those are not combined. So how many answers do I have? How many answers to this equation do we have?
2.
2, right? The first answer is 3 plus 8I. The second answer is 3 minus 8I. How did we call those two numbers? Remember? Two complex numbers with the different plus and minus before the imaginary part. Remember? Last time we learned that. Last class. Conjugates or something? Yes. Remember that? No? Not very interested? Okay, questions about this? Even homecoming week, even with the rally coming up, you're still like, oh, very, oh no, not that. I just meant, I'm such an opposite person. I'm either here or there. Like I'm never. Okay, try this one on your own. let's do this one together because everybody's making the same mistake. Okay, so step number 1, get everything that is squared on one side. Do I need to do anything for that step? No, it's already here. Again, I didn't stop. Okay, second step is what? Square root, right? So square root of the one side and then square root of the other side, and I don't forget what? Plus minus, right here, super important. Now the square root of x plus 5 squared is what? Just x plus 5 plus minus, the square root of 81 is what? 9. So now here, there are two different equations here, right? One equation says x plus 5 equals 9, or the second version, or second option is x plus 5 equals negative 9. I need to solve these two equations, right, to get to my final answer. Minus 5 gives me x plus 5 equals 4, or minus 5 gives me what? X equals negative 14. So your answer is not plus minus 4 or plus minus 14. It's 4 or negative 14. Okay? Either 4 or negative 14.
I see.
So these are two answers. If I write it with my fancy way of writing, it's 4, negative 14. Those are the two answers. Questions? Why negative 14? Because this equation with plus minus is actually two different equations. If x plus 5 equals 9 or x plus 5 equals negative 9. When I solve the second one, minus 5, I get negative 9 minus 5, negative 13. Right? Questions? Okay. Let's try this one. This will be similar, so don't make that mistake. Two different answers.
You get our quizzes back today? You get our quizzes back today?
Mrs. Edwards. Okay, so who can help me solve this one? Elise, since you're looking at me. How do we solve this? Add 5. The first step is to get rid of everything on one side but the perfect square. So minus 1 over 2 x plus 8 to the power of 2 equals 14. Now what?
Wait, that's my question. Why wouldn't you multiply by 2? The opposite is the question. Why are you multiplying by negative?
Oh, so you want to multiply it by the opposite, meaning if I have the negative, you multiply by positive. Because if I multiply it by just 2, right? Let's do that. If I just multiply by 2, I still have that negative sign here because negative 1 over 2 multiplied by positive 2 still gives me negative number. Negative 1, right? Times x plus 8 squared equals 28. But I still need to get...
Saying you have to do something.
Yeah, so I could now multiply it by negative 1, but we did it together. We should wanted to do it at the same time. But I could totally do it separately, right? So now I'm getting rid of the negative 1 by multiplying or dividing by negative 1. So x plus 8 to the power of 2 equals negative 28. Alright? Okay, so what do I do next, Alice? I square it. I mean, take square root of it, right? So square root x plus 8 squared negative 28, and I don't forget plus and minus sign, right? So that's the step number 2. So what is the square root of x plus 8 to the power of 2? Just x plus 8 equals plus minus. How can I simplify square root of negative 28? I out. Very good. Everyone sees that?
But if we get 28,
Right. So instead of the 28,
no, how did we get 28?
or did I make a mistake? 14 times 2, right? So plus 5 plus 5 gives me 14, and then
Oh,
we multiply
okay.
by 2, 28. The reciprocal of 1 over 2. Right? I multiply by reciprocal to get rid of the fraction. Right? I don't know who asked over 2.
Thank you.
Okay, so does everyone see where these 2 square roots of 7 come from? Okay. So now what? I still need to solve for x, right? Minus 8 minus 8. So x equals negative 8 plus minus. That's our final answer. Questions? Okay. So let's do number 10. Look, number 10, not 9. Let's see. Yeah, let's do number 10. Just because I want to make sure you do this correctly. So you skip 9 and 5. Try on your own. You're done? Then also one more section. I need a personal assistant. Isaiah, you want to help me? Can you do it with me? Can you just tell me what to do? No? Yes, that's it. Subtract 4. So I have x minus 2 to the power of 2 equals 36. So x minus 2 equals just x plus and minus, right? So let's do this just like this one time by steps. So I take the square roots of both sides and I add the plus minus, right? Square root of the x minus 2 to the power of 2 is just x minus 2. Square root of 36, I'll just rewrite for now, plus minus sign. And now I can rewrite and simplify the radical. Square root of 36 is just 6. And now we solve it, right? So it's either x minus 2 equals 6 or, right? What is the second one? So this means x minus 2 equals 6 or what is the second equation? x minus 2 equals negative 6, right? So we combine these two in one sentence. But it's x minus 2 either plus or minus 6. So it's either plus 6 or x minus 2 is minus 6, right? So like this is just a fancy way to write two equations together, right? Okay. And so now we solve. How do we solve this one? Plus 2 plus 2. So x equals 8. And this one? Plus 2 plus 2. So x equals negative 4. Correct. Very good. Questions? No questions? Okay, so we have almost 10 minutes. Let's go through these. That will be good. Decide what the best method is to solve the following quadratics, then solve them. So let's see the first one. What do you want to do? Factoring or perfect squares?
Perfect square.
Let's do perfect squares, right? And why do we say that, Isaiah?
Because it's one that works perfect square.
Yeah, because we have this perfect square here and only numbers, right? Right? We don't need to like do this quadratic formula, blah blah blah. So we'll just do the perfect squares. What do we do, Isaiah?
First you need to add 3 to both sides.
Add 3 to both sides. I want the perfect square on one side. Equals 20. Now what do I do?
So you just take the square root of both things.
So square root of x plus 1 to the power of 2 equals square root of 20 plus minus. Very good. So what is the square root of the x plus 1 to the power of 2?
X plus 1.
Equals my plus minus.
2 to the square root of 5.
What is it? Say it again.
2 to the square root of 5.
Very good. Everyone sees that? Square root of 20 is just 2 to the multiplied by square root of 5. Right? We could do the ladder. Okay, so how do I solve for x?
I'm not sure. I think like you subtract one.
We subtract 1. Very good. So I subtract 1. And then how do I write it? Let's write here.
X equals
Mhm.
1.
Very good. Negative 1 plus minus. Yes, excellent. I'm all squeezed here. X equals negative 1 plus minus 2 square roots of 5. Right? Because we did negative 1, minus 1 minus 1. That's where that negative 1 comes from. And we cannot combine them because one has the square root of 5 and the other doesn't. So these are not similar terms. Okay. Questions about this? Hannah, we're good? Yeah? Okay. So what about this, the number 2? What would you do here? Square root method or factor?
Factor.
Factor. Why do we say that?
How does it work?
Well, it does. Anyone has like, it is a trinomial, right? We don't have any perfect squares given to us here. Right? We have this x squared, but then we have the x, right? To get the perfect square, we need something squared. So let's do trinomial method. What do I do? I subtract 33x from both sides, get everything on one side, and have it equal to 0. Now what do I do? What do I do? How do I solve this? I need to factor, right? So how do I factor this trinomial? By 3. Okay, so like the T chart, right? Yeah. So I don't know what by 3 means. So M and A. So I need two numbers that multiply into what number?
Negative.
Well, what should I have done first?
Raise common.
I should have done GCF first, right? Then the numbers would be better. Let's do that. Oh, that's what you meant? Oh, by 3, I see. By 3, you meant divide by 3 GCF. I thought you were talking about, like, instead of T chart, use some kind of 3. Yeah, okay. So divide by 3, very good. Let's do that. So divide by 3 everything. No, I just, sometimes I don't even hear the difference in different words. So 3 is all the same to me. Okay, so 3 times x squared minus 11x plus what? 73 divided by 3? Like 24 or something? Right? 0. Now what do I do? How do I factor this trinomial? What do I use? Come on, we got 2 minutes. Let's finish this. T chart. Now we do the T chart. Okay, so we're gonna do this. So I need two numbers that multiply into what number? Into 24 and it into minus 11. So what is it? Negative what? Negative 3 and negative 8. Very good. So 3 times what? The bell didn't ring yet. We didn't release you. The bell might be like 5 minutes late. We could finish this whole thing. Right? Okay, so 3 times what? What? I can't hear anybody. Solve it. X minus 3, x minus 8 equals 0. How do I solve this? So x minus 3 is 0 or x minus 8 is 0. So x equals 3 or x equals 8. Very good. By the way, how would you solve, just like answer this question, how would you solve number 4? Is it better to solve by polynomial or factoring? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm saying like nonsense. Is it easiest to solve by factoring or by square root method? Square root, right? Because you cannot factor this. This is not DOS, right? It's not a difference. So we can't even solve this by factoring.
We'll just get I.
Right? So we need to do, yes. So we need to do this like that.
Guys, I'm sorry. We have your grade report, so you can see what grade.